Okay, hi, sisters and brothers. We're back to do our study on that verse that we find in Exodus 22. I said 12. I think I said 12 in the last video. I was looking at another reference when I said that. I have tried 4 times to make this video, but no go. So, I've tried since last Monday. Today is Saturday. So, it's the 15th today, February 15th. So, I've made 2 folders, 2 files this time. Went through, found copies of the information. So we're going to look at that verse. We're also going to look at the scapegoat. We're also going to look at the almond branch. So most of my references are going to come out of these folders. So first, let's begin with this verse and hope that the camera actually, holds. So we're going to go to Exodus 22:18. What does it say? Thou shalt not permit a witch to live. Now, without going into my parallel chapters, it has it multiple ways. It translations parallel, or I forget what it is that they offer you where you can just line them right up and go through. See, or in a lot of books that you read, whatnot. So there's only 3 words that actually appear in this verse. We're trying to bolt through this information as fast as we can. And so the words is a sorceress, and it's translated as 3784 is your Strong's Hebrew word. 08, and then 2421, you shall permit to live, is how it's here. So you shall not permit to live. Now, is it going to move? This is the big question. I shouldn't have to touch on a lot of things here. All right, so back here. Okay, I'm making sure my camera's not stuttering here. For the difficulty, I should not be having, honestly, the problems that I'm having. I really should not. I freed up so much info. I've took down a lot of my camera rolls. And again, this page is not responding. So look at that, just right off the top. And I'm in Numbers. Well, no, I had Exodus pulled up. This has been sitting here for 3 days now. Like I said, I've tried multiple occasions to make this video. It just don't. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull up my video, my camera, to make sure. When you go in and you look at the word, we're going to talk from memory here, hopefully. The word for sorceress there that they translate as a sorceress or as a witch is going to come up as a verb. And it's going to mean to practice sorcery, sorcerer. They'll give witchcraft, but it's translated based on a verb there. And it's going to lead you back to the actual noun. Okay? No, is it a verb? I might have it wrong. Yeah, I think it's a verb that they translate the word. So it's on the action. How they get a woman there, I don't know. The word female doesn't appear there. When you go on and you hit on the derivative of the actual word, it's going to take you ahead by 1. And I ain't got it wrote down, of course, because I thought I'd be able to use at least that verse and go in and hit on that word, but my computer just is not cooperating with me. So when you go in, you're going to find it's a noun masculine, and it's going to mean sorcery is what it's going to mean, and then it'll also witchcraft. Of all of those translations where it translates it as witchcraft or witch, thou shalt not suffer a witch to live, in that verse, I think it's gave 6 times that verse. Every other time, except Exodus 22:18. They will translate it as a sorcerer or sorcery every time. Of the other times, so that's 5 out of the 6 times it's translated as a sorcerer and sorcery. Those are the translations. Those will be the reference verses that they give you. Why they chose to translate this as a witch, you make your own mind up. It appears that they actually wanted to go after the women. Now, if you think about why that might be, they were going after particular branches. What usually appears in a witch's hand is usually a wand. And a wand is usually made out of what? A branch of a tree, isn't it? So then we bring in the almond branch, which is pretty darn important. And you can say the evidence is flimsy, but we've watched over history. It really was the women that they were going after to burn at the stakes. It wasn't witches, it was women they were going after. And it was proven over time that they were going after one, either to go after their possessions, the lands that they held to their name. Many of these ended up being widows. And so there was no longer a man in the house. And you can say, well, a man to defend her against what? Wicked men, claiming to be righteous men who were these Christian males going after women. Not witches, women. But where does the idea of witchery and witchcraft actually stem from? You got to think to yourself, is there something that we're not being shown, that we're not being told? And based on the information that I can come up with, there was a real power. Now, let's get into some of the interesting information. We're going to begin in this folder. So we're not even going to mess with the computer. I sat in front of the computer camera yesterday for an hour and a half, just doing my usual thing, studying, and just watching to see if it fetched up by not touching it. So it didn't fetch up, it didn't do nothing. So then I said, well, I've got thousands and thousands of printouts of the chapters of the Bible. Why not go and use those and just go the way I used to go, which was the old-fashioned way. So now, here we go. Okay, so bear with me. Please, bear with me. So we're going to go to, let me go through all my passages here on my almond branch references. Okay. Okay. All right. So we're going to go, I believe, to this verse, which is going to appear in Jeremiah 1:11. All right, now I'm not going to touch this just yet. Jeremiah, forgive me for this. It may take me a while to find it because I have a lot of references in here. So Jeremiah 1:11, is it 1:11? Yeah, 1:11 and 12. We're going to take a quick look at this. I believe that's it. Oh, that's not it. Okay, sorry. I am getting there. That it? Right there. So Jeremiah 1:11 says this, and you can say, well, how can we identify, why these women were, according to my story, it's not my story, it's a biblical story that gets told, and it gets told to you in this hidden language called allegory, which is the language that was unique to the presence of God, which was the feminine aspect inside this physical nation of Israel, where the godly people were said to dwell. They were godly because they followed God's law, not because of a particular bloodline, which has been taught to us, but by a particular people that were willing to follow the way of God. That was the law of God, off of, number one, the daughter of Zion's tongue. It was off no man's tongue. Now, what does it say about this branch? And we're going to connect all of this together, okay? This is what it says. Jeremiah 1:11, it says, moreover, the word of the Lord came unto me, saying, Jeremiah, what seest thou? And I said, I see a rod of an almond tree. Verse 12, then saith the Lord unto me, thou hast seen well, for I will hasten my word to perform it. So now let's understand here. This is the question that then becomes, to the front of your mind, or should. Does the almond branch represent something positive or negative? Well, we were just told here what the almond branch represented. For I will hasten my word to perform it. So the symbol of the almond branch or almond rod that he saw, or the almond tree, was a promise of God's word to be fulfilled and to perform it. So let's go here, as long as my camera will hold, just for this maybe. Okay, I apologize if it doesn't. We want to go to this site, and I will leave this link down below. Okay, give it time. Takes it a minute or two. Okay, we just got movement. Okay, so this is what I wanted to say. And vigilant to promises and fulfillment, resurrection and renewal. To, this is key, divine communication. There we go. Now I had wrote that down. Now I've lost my pen like I do so often. So we'll write that word down. Divine communication. What did we get in the last video? I think it was the last video. No, the video before that. The Omphalos stone, right? And what was that symbolizing? It was symbolizing a well where they received what? Divine communication. So what is it actually taking us back to? Right there. Not what we've been told. Not a golden holy grail cup. No. You know what it's taken us to? It's taken us to the silver cup of Joseph, which was the feminine aspect. That's what it's taken us back to. Again, we're going to prove this in a minute. So, from watchfulness and vigilance to promises and fulfillment, resurrection and renewal to divine communication, faithfulness and perseverance to judgment and warnings, the almond tree serves as a powerful metaphor throughout the scriptures. Now, can I move? I can. So, by understanding its significance, we gain deeper insights into the messages conveyed. Down we go. We're not going to read all of this. We're going to keep moving here. The almond tree holds deep symbolic meaning. So, the almond tree is often associated with watchfulness and vigilance. Just as the almond tree is the first to bloom in the spring, it serves as a reminder to be alert and attentive. Right. So, and so in Jeremiah, an almond branch symbolizing it's got his, no her. It's her watchful eye over her word, because that was her power over the word, her word to perform it. This highlights the importance of staying vigilant, especially in the end of days, when you may have fell into a snare, and attentive to God's messages and instructions. That's divine communication. So we know that the devil is so clever. Another name for devil is Satan. Another name for Satan is fallen Adam. We've traced it back. Beelzebub. Baal means your husband. So he accused her in the beginning. We know this so that he could steal her throne and sphere of power, which was a right over the law. But we also see violence really coming into that. And so we see really what we're seeing is the cleverness of fallen man, which is really Satan, the accuser of the Holy Spirit's representation on this world, on this earth, as the daughter of Zion, the women inside the nation of Israel, which was rejected in the Exodus. We proved it. So promises and fulfillment. Number 2, the almond tree also represents promises and fulfillments. So in number 17:8, we're going to take a look at that. Aaron's staff made of almond wood blossomed and produced almonds, confirming her chosen position as high priest. This miraculous sign demonstrated God's faithfulness, and we're going to prove that these staffs, these rods, these branches definitely belonged to the mothers of each of the tribe. This miraculous sign demonstrated God's faithfulness in fulfilling her promises. The almond tree serves as a reminder that God's promises will be fulfilled in her perfect timing. Resurrection and renewal. So, just as the almond tree blooms after a period of dormancy, we proved that in Romans 11, it signifies the cycle of life, death, and rebirth. This symbolism is also seen in the story of Aaron's staff, and on we go. Divine communication. Number 4, the almond tree is associated with divine communication. The golden lampstand in the tabernacle was designed with almond-shaped cups and blossoms. They were also designed with, guess what? What was they called? The lilies of the covenant. So it had lilies also on it. This imagery represents the light of God's presence and her desire to communicate with her people through the Holy Spirit. That would be through her daughters, which are represented as the first fruit. We're going to link that back to the almond again. The almond tree serves as a reminder that God desires to speak to us and guide us through her word and her spirit. She testifies through these and the blood. That's right. Which takes us to that verse in Revelations where the holy ones are actually holding up their hands saying, "How long, O Lord, faithful and true, does thou not avenge our blood on those that shed it in the earth?" So number 5, faithfulness and perseverance. You got it. What does she call us? Her strong ones, her preserved ones, who persevere. The almond tree symbolizes faithfulness and perseverance. That she is watching over her word to perform it is found in Jeremiah 1:11-12. The almond tree's ability to withstand harsh conditions and still produce fruit. That's the burden placed upon these daughters to carry forth the children, the fruit of the womb, under heavy duress. Yes, such as having their rights removed out from under the law system, their goods removed, and their power to actually rule and govern their own children. So, and still under great duress and withstand harsh conditions reflects the importance of remaining faithful and persevering in our walk with God. It reminds us to stay committed to God's word and not his promises. It was her promises. Even in challenging times, she has borne the burden. Yes, she has. She has carried the children through. Judgment and warnings. Lastly, the almond tree represents judgment and warnings. Again, in Jeremiah 1:11-12, God shows Jeremiah an almond branch, signifying the swiftness of her judgment. The almond tree's early blooming serves as a warning that judgment is imminent. It reminds us of the urgency to heed her warnings and turn away from sin. The almond tree serves as a reminder of the consequences of disobedience and the need for repentance. Understanding the significance of the almond tree in the Bible provides us with deeper insights into the messages conveyed in Scripture, from watchfulness, vigilance, promises, fulfillment, resurrection, renewal, divine communication, faithfulness, and perseverance to judgment and warnings. The almond tree serves as a powerful metaphor throughout the Scriptures. This is all representative of God's Holy Spirit. Let us now reflect on these profound meanings and apply them to our lives. So, in closing, the almond tree holds a significant place in the Bible, symbolizing various important concepts from watchfulness and vigilance to promises and fulfillment, resurrection and renewal to divine communication, faithfulness, perseverance, judgment, warnings. The almond tree serves as a powerful metaphor throughout Scripture. Well, that was just repeated, wasn't it? Yeah. Absolutely. So, is it a bad thing? Well, obviously not. It's not. It's a sign of the end time, really, and it's a sign when you're bearing witness to these daughters. I'm going to check my camera again. Sorry, I'm just hoping that it's still working. And it's a sign basically that the Spirit has come upon the daughters who are identified as first fruits. Now, let's go into some other passages here. We're going to find a branch and a staff in Zechariah 13. Now, this is important. This one I put in here because most don't understand its significance. And once you get a handle on, the suffering, thou shalt not suffer a witch, a woman. Thou shalt not suffer a woman to live. They might as well have put that in there. And King James was a king who could not stand witchcraft. He actually hated women when you get understanding his great paranoia is how I would say it. But again, it comes back to them basing that power of the wand, of the rod, of the staff on something tangible. They were aware of something very tangible, I think, something that's been hid from the rest of us. And I think the deeper you dig into the scriptures on the almond and its importance, the almond tree, the almond branch, then you begin to hit on this power and the reason why they put so many women to death, calling them witches, they were actually going after a particular branch, a particular line and lines of women, really working to wipe them out. That gets testified simply by the verses that you find in Psalm 83. Let us cut them off from being a nation. Well, cut who off from being a nation? Well, it was the woman's seed they were cutting off from being a nation. And the woman's seed is in regards to the women inside the nation of Israel that they were really going after. So they were working really hard to burn these women and the knowledge of their power out of existence, in my humble opinion. Maybe not so humble. But let's go to these verses that we're going to find in Zechariah chapter 11. Now, we have done studies on this particular passage and some of the words. Now, this is a very pale copy. I couldn't find a strongly printed copy. So, she says in verse 10, and it is she. And I took my staff, even beauty, and I cut it asunder that I might break my covenant which I had made with all the people. No, this is a staff. It's a symbol of her power. This is the glory speaking here herself. This is a very important chapter. Watch, we're going to hit why. And it was broken in that day. And so the poor of the flock, the women, the really poor women, and their children, their sons and their daughters, of the flock that waited upon me, knew that it was the word of the Lord. So when you hear these words, I think, out of women's mouth like mine, you're going to know the truth when you hear it because of truth reasons. Yeah. What they're preaching today off the pulpit, man preaching man himself as God, that's what he's doing. And he's doing it out of pride. And the women who have fell into that snare, you find mentioned, is it in 1 Timothy or 2 Timothy? I can't even remember the chapter. These women have been laden down with foolish lust. Well, the lust there would be them desiring the idea of a perfect man who would just shed his blood and take away all of her sins. But she's carried away by foolish lusts, which takes you to, and remember, these men have snuck into these houses, these women's houses, and told them this foolish story. And it takes you to the passage in Ezekiel 47. Your wisdom, harlot, it has perverted you. It has perverted your understanding. It's not what you've been told by these idol worshipping fools. God calls them knave. God calls them, in many sense, stupid for bowing to these idols that were created nothing more than by man's hands and the wicked imaginations of his mind and heart. So, and I said unto them, if ye think good. Now she's talking, I think, to the priests who had taken control by this time of the law, her law, saying it was them. Now, that takes us back to the passages in Malachi chapter 2. These priests that were not anointed by God, because it's the priestesses that are anointed by God. They are the divine communicators of the word, of the law, of the truth. So she says, and I said unto them, if ye think good, give me my price, and if not, forbear. So they weighed for my price. Pay attention here. This is important. 30 pieces of gold, not of gold, of silver. You know what you're coming up with? The silver cup of Joseph right there. What does she promise in the next verse? And the Lord said unto me, cast it unto the potter. A goodly price. That word goodly is going to take you to Strong Hebrew 145. From 145, it's going to take you to 155, which is the female glory. I don't think this is female or male. I can't remember. I'm pretty sure it's not. The goodly price that I was prized at of them. And I took the 30 pieces of silver and I cast them to the potter in the house of the Lord. Because the Lord says, cast them to the potter's house and I will make your glory even grander. So this then takes us to Joseph's silver cup, really. And it took me to the story Percival. Now, I had forgot that years ago I had a dream of a silver platter. And it wasn't until about 2 years ago that I began to research that silver platter, and I found it in Percival, the story of Percival, the story of the Grail, the story of the Holy Grail. Now, in that story, Percival, who wants to be a mighty warrior, sees this procession, this royal procession, um, led by a bloody spear, I forget all of, candelabra carried by two boys, then this holy golden, I think it was golden, maybe it wasn't golden, encrusted cup, and then a maiden carrying a silver platter. Well, in my dream, I had a silver platter, and I had the dream in 2018. If I can find, I did find it. I will post it down below. And in that dream, I had a silver platter, and on it was a white piece of paper, and it said mandate. And when I picked that silver platter up underneath it, it said now. So the glory says here, or the mother says, I will reshape your glory even grander. So if you think of a silver platter, it could possibly be made from 30 pieces of silver. I know I'm making stretches here. But Joseph divined out of that silver cup. So it was a divine communication that we're speaking about that Joseph did from his cup. He divined from it. Now we find that in Genesis, and Lord forbid, I cannot remember what chapter. Isaiah, it's not Genesis 47. I can't remember. It might be Genesis 37. I should have had it written down. Oh, maybe I do. And Lord didn't forbid it. Oh, I forgot it. So, let me see if we can find it. Okay. So I don't. No. But it's funny I don't have it right here. So we get a linking of the silver to Joseph's silver cup that he divined out of, not to a golden holy grail cup. The communication of God came out of the silver cup through hydromancy, which also links us to the Omphale stone. Now, when you go pull up the story Percival, the story of the Holy Grail, if you hit on that word grail there, it'll say it also maybe means a stone. So what they're talking about when that reference comes up there, it's talking about the philosopher's stone, this magical item that would turn everything to gold. Well, it'll turn the suns to gold. The truth should be able to do that. And the truth is represented by silver, the color silver, and by water, which comes from the daughter's mouth, not the son's, which ought to make the potter's clay into gold, according to Lamentations 4. We studied it when the golden sons, who were her sons, turned on the wise women in the nation of Israel, known as the foundation stone rejected, and they were murdering these wise women. Instead of offering up a water libation, they began to offer up a blood libation. And from there, we see these golden sons becoming nothing more than the value of clay pots. So that's why we get the stone allegory lumped in there with the holy or with the grail. It takes you to the stone. It's taking you to the philosopher's stone and the power that that stone held. So all round and round we go with the weaving of the spider's web, which can't hold the garment together, which is found again in Isaiah 59. So this is why this is so important, that 30 pieces of silver. And God says, I will shape your glory even grander, even grander. So we know the water springs from the sister, the wife, spouse of the original covenant that was denied. And we find that in Song of Songs 4:12-15. And we also know that she flowed from Lebanon like a living water. Now, the next part we're going to go to Ecclesiastes because that's where we find the great warning. Sorry. So 1 to 5, we'll read. Ecclesiastes 12, 1 to 5. Remember now thy creator. You're being warned to remember your creator. Who's the creator? Well, another word for the creator here is, if you look this word up, and I can't remember, I was supposed to do it. It was 12 something, I forget. Strong's Hebrew 12 something. If you go pull that up, it's going to mean to form. That's another word for your potter and your maker. And we've already identified her in Isaiah 29. You denied your potter, your maker, your creator. When you turned everything upside down and told her that she had no power over her own creation, the clay that she forms in her womb. Yeah. Travails, bleeds, burdens. It's a burden on her, not on him. And it is the glory of this Lord. That's right, to bring salvation unto the people. Now we find that verse in Psalm 68. Now on we go. Let's read this first before we move on, okay? So remember now thy creator in the days of thy youth, while the evil days not come. So for many of us in the West, the evil days have not come, have they? Nor the years draw nigh. So you're being warned here to remember something. So that word remember again became very important to me. So when thou shalt say, I have no pleasure in them, while the sun or the light or the moon or the stars be not darkened, nor the clouds return after the rain. In the day when the keepers of the house shall tremble, and the strong men shall bow themselves, and the grinders cease because they are few, and those that look out of the windows are darkened, and the doors shall be shut in the street when the sound of the grinding is low. And he shall rise up at the voice of the bird, and the daughters of music shall be brought low. This is the verse we're looking for. So it is verse 5. Also when they shall be afraid of that which is high. High. Let's pay attention to that word. Let's highlight it. And fears shall be in the way, and the almond tree shall flourish, and the grasshopper shall be a burden. Grasshopper here is a reference to a soldier's. Shall be a burden, and the desire shall fail, because man goeth to his long home, and the mourners go about the street. Or ever the silver cord be loosed, or the golden bowl be broken, or the pitcher be broken at the fountain, or the wheel broken at the cistern. So, of course, they've got a golden bowl, but we actually find a bowl being held by Virgo in the constellation of Virgo. She also, the Libra, the scales were once said to make up her arms. She was the one that doled out justice, and she still does. She really does. Man thinks he's accomplished getting rid of the Holy One. That's what he thinks he's managed to do. Come, let us cut them off from being a nation. What they meant by cut them off is let's cut their law off. We find that going to Psalm 2 when the king took counsel and said, let us cut her cords asunder, right? Those cords was the law system, which you go back to Proverbs 1 to identify who's actually speaking in Psalm 2, right? So she says, you won't hearken to my instructions when I come, when I open the door, when I call, when I reason, you won't hearken to me. So she says, but you need to listen to the water when it is drawn out of the well. There we go with the omphalos stone. We also go with the silver cup, though they've got a golden bowl here. And so she says, while the evil days come not, why there is still time to hear me, to listen, to turn to my law from the wicked bloodshed law of man that really preached a male that washed you in his blood, right? Which just led to a bloodshed law system and woman debased under this male God ideology. And that's exactly what it is. They rejected the foundation stone in the beginning for a harlot, foundation. We see them burning her to an ash heap. There we go back to the burning of the witches. And we're going to take that to another level in a minute. So, when fears that which is high, and fear shall be in the way, and the almond tree shall flourish, right? And before you can no longer draw water from the well, you need to remember your Creator that you rejected in the days of your youth. You need to recall. Now, why that word high to me became so important is because I remember this passage. Now, let's qualify it right quick before I read this passage and let you determine for yourself. Is it in this particular file? It should be here. That's not it. That's not it. There it is. So let's read it. No, I'm going to qualify it first. Let's remember high. What's on high? Now, I'm going to go back to a woman's channel, The Final Days, and most Christians know of her, heard of her. Most people who are religious in some sense know of her. Now, the very last video that she posted it on August 15th. That would be Aw 15th. That's an interesting date, isn't it? August 15th. And I think it was 2023. I might be wrong on that. She posted her last video. What she said in that last video, barring her preaching the idol, was that there was 2 planets that were now in a stable orbit around Earth. One she focused on, she said it was very small. It looked like it had been hit with a lot of meteorites and whatnot, and a lot of damage had been done to it. And the other one, which showed up in the Alaska camera, she didn't dwell on too much, but it looked much larger to me in my perspective, and it didn't look like it had the damage. So, when you look at that and in your mind you think to yourself, that's high, don't you? That's high. So what was this verse in Ecclesiastes? It says, also when they shall be afraid of that which is high, and fear shall be in the way, and the almond tree shall flourish. Why might we point to that word high, meaning out there amongst the stars? Because the same word high appears in Obadiah 1. Watch. It says, the pride of thine heart. This is Adam, fallen man, Lucifer, Satan, Beelzebub. The pride of thine heart hath deceived thee. Thou that dwellest in the clefts of the rocks, whose habitation is, what does it say? High. But let's keep reading. That saith in his heart, who shall bring me down to the ground? Yes, she does. She does. Mikael, she who's like God, will rise up for her chosen people, the ones that will follow her law, and she will take that dragon and his word. It says no place will be found for his word anymore in Revelations. That's right. And when you find place there, it's scabbard. That's why we know it's sword, and sword is allegorized as a word. So there's no more room found, no more place found for his bloody law system. So let's keep going on here. It says, whose habitation is high, that saith in his heart, who shall bring me down to the ground? Though thou exalt thyself as the eagle represents a spirit, and though thou set thy nest among where? The stars. Hence will I bring thee down, saith the Lord. So you suppose there's only 2 planets in stable orbit around Earth? There may be a reason to find your Creator right now, why the water is still being drawn from the well for you to hear, and to rightly divide the word, which is represented as the Red Sea, that the presence of God, identified as the daughters of Zion, inside the nation of Israel, parted the admixture of religious lies, allegorized as a wine on the table that you got drunk on and went to sleep in, a religious lie. And it's on her to part it. She says, you didn't see my pathways. The admixture of lies came over and covered over my pathway. That's what she says. Yep, that's what she says. Where was I going now? So Is there a possibility, you suppose, I can pass that one, that there could be more than two planets in steady orbit? Maybe we can't see all the high places, right? I'll call that one out because I need it. Okay, so we're not going to go over everything that I found, but is that the word? No. There is a reason, is what I'm going on here. And I don't have that one. Was that one? I wasn't able to find it. I don't think I was able to find it. So we're going to have to go to it. Hopefully I can get to it. And that is number 17. And that's where Aaron's branch blossoms. There we go with blossom, the bloom of Joseph again. And we are also going to link it to Ephraim, the north kingdom, the almond branch. We've already did it once. We're going to do it again. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to take that out and I'm going to try to free that space up a little bit. Now, we're going to do two things here simultaneously, maybe. I better not brag. And that is in number 17. Directly. It's not great camera. See my number 7. Oh, yeah. Okay. Children of Israel, take of every one of them a rod, according to the house of their fathers, mind you. It's their fathers. It's not their mothers. But we can prove it is so the mothers. And they are really lying about information. And they have took a lot of effort to cover it over. But yet it is on us to persevere over it and to find these deeper truths that have been allegorized through the hidden language, which is dark riddles, dark sayings. So it's on us to break their meanings down. So say unto the children of Israel, and take every one of them a rod according to the house of their fathers. It's really not fathers, it's mothers. Of all their princes, it's not princes, it's never should have been represent as princes. It should have always been stated as principals. Each house held principals. According to the house of their fathers, not their mothers, 12 rods. Write thou every man's name upon his rod. So that takes us really back to Zechariah 11, doesn't it? Where she says, what am I worth then? What was my glory worth to you that you want to get rid of me so bad? Then fine, give to me what you think my glory is worth. So they gave her a goodly price. The word goodly is glory there. And she was to cast it to her mother's house, the potter, who promised her, I will make your house even grander. That is represented by the silver cup, that Joseph, defining the north kingdom, Ephraim, Manasseh, Joseph, Ephraim was another name, which means fruitful, right? Very fruitful, which is the feminine blessing of the birthright. She also held the queenship of the kingdom, and it was represented and symbolized by the rod. Okay, now, what was I getting to? So we have 12, 12 here. We have two planets out there. That which is high. where I will, okay, so, and thou shalt lay them up in the tabernacle, watch this, of the congregation before the testimony. This is a testimony where I will meet with you. And it shall come to pass that the man's rod, now the woman's rod, whom I shall choose, shall blossom, bloom. There we go, back to the bloom of Joseph. Joseph is a fruitful bough. The word for fruitful there, you will find, will take you to the word bloom or blossom. And we know it was the women running over the wall there, defined as the daughters, the branch there. But it's daughters there running over the wall, which is then going to take you to 2 Samuel chapter 22. I highly recommend you go read that chapter and break down the allegory. It's going to take you straight back to the one that they hated, which was the daughters that were running over the wall, which also takes you to Joel 2, the great army running over the wall. It's these women. And you shall lay them up in the tabernacle of the congregation before the testimony, where I will meet with you, and it shall come to pass that the woman, not man, whom I shall choose, shall blossom or bloom, and I will make to cease from me the murmurings. So who are they murmuring against? It's the daughter of Zion. It's the woman's seed, the women that they murmur against, and they use the law to do it with. Of the children of Israel, those who profess to keep the law of wisdom, their mother, found in Proverbs 1. Yet when she calls, she says, when I call to you, you can't be bothered to listen to any of my instructions, my laws. And you can't make sense. You don't want to reason. You go, he. Well, now, does that reason? He gives life to you? Who is the potter and the creator and the maker represented by here? If not by my daughters, the women. So who are they murmuring against? She says, you hated me without a cause. They hated, and they shot at the daughters as they ran over the wall. And you get it repeated again as hate in 2 Samuel 22. And it takes you straight back to who the Baal, their husband, was shooting his wicked words at in a covenant, a bow that should have never been. So, and I will make to cease from me the murmurings of the children of Israel, whereby they murmur against you, my daughter. And Moses spake unto the children, right? And we find that it was Aaron's blossom, a rod that blossomed. So the almond tree blossom. What else is important about this chapter? We get 12. Now, this is the other thing that most people who's not bothered to pick up the Bible and actually break the riddles down, the dark sayings, which is the language of allegory that God uses. So it really means a study. It really means going in and to learn to rightly divide the word of truth. That's your Red Sea, allegorized also as a birthing canal, which then takes you to the Holy Spirit. She says, long time have I held my peace in Isaiah 42. Now will I go forth as a travailing woman. I will lead you in pathways that you have not known. So that was the Red Sea, the blood waters that came in over her path, and you did not see her pathway. You denied her law. And it's always about transgressing the law and covenant of God. The covenant meant the law of God. And these men transgress it every day by holding up man's law, saying women have no right, and then validating it through the stupid Torah law that came from Mount Sinai after Sennacherib went up, tore down her high places. Yeah. And she is found moving off of Sinai, which means desolation, which takes you to the desolate spirit. Yet more are the children of the desolate one than of she who has a husband. She who has a husband is Baal herself. And that simply takes you to the Jezebel, a woman who is willingly bowing down to a man-made idol, her husband, her bridegroom, her lord, and her master not. And she's willingly playing his harlot and helping him to remove all good things from this world. So, yet more are the children of the desolate. Now, in Numbers 17, we get this mention of 12. Where else do we get the mention of 12? Now, I was going to the Azazel goat. Okay? Now, if you go to Abram Publications, and now I got to move back here to the blue file, which has the she-goat. This is going to take us to the she-goat, and it's going to take us to the number 12, and it's going to take us to the scapegoat, which was she, who was forced to carry the burden of sin, double, XX upon her head. Now, to Abraham's Publications, I won't go into all the details here. It says this. So, that way, the name Azazel would mean a she-goat of going away, which is near perfect and probably as good as it gets. Now, that's a translation of the Azazel goat, also called your scapegoat in Leviticus. The first part of that word, as, means a female goat. Azel means going away. So she was going away into a land not inhabited is generally your translation. And so many of the old archives of these Jewish writers would say it was an evil demon spirit. Some even said it was a representation of God himself. No, wrong. Not himself. And some said that it was just wicked. It was a wicked entity that dwelt out in the desert. I forget everything they said. I read it years ago. But the basic understanding, when we understand it, the scapegoat is female. And a scapegoat bears the burden. And a goat, a female goat, is much different than a male goat. Very different. What's to be realized about both of these is they both climb to high places. Now, what else is to be recognized about the she-goat is that she alone appears in, not alone, but the solitary goat is female that appears in the Genesis 15:9 covenant, and the only covenant of God that you will find in the scriptures. So the first animal we realized is a heifer. That is a representation of the nation of Israel herself. Nations are usually represented by heifers, right? In this case, Israel is represented as a red heifer, which is a symbol of the suffering servant, these daughters, who suffers to bring forth the burden. The children have come to the birth, she says, yet there is not strength to bring forth. That's the daughter of Zion in 2 Kings 19, sitting between what they call the cherubims. Now, I'm still coming up on what that means. We saw King Solomon actually making idols of these cherubims into bulls. But we also understood in our studies that they were actually real idols that he was creating. So what she was sitting beside, I don't think were idols. I really don't. I think she was sitting between something very different. So the heifer is the first animal that gets mentioned, and it's a representation of the nation of Israel. Now we know it's the daughters that produce the nations. You can't have nations any other way. She that forms the clay in her womb. She's called the creator, the maker, the potter that got denied. The second animal is a she-goat. That's right. The she-goat, she's important because she's not only the suffering servant carrying the burden that we get identified in Psalm 68, burned to an ash heap, but watch, we'll keep going on. She's also, now we'll stop there for a minute, and if I think, we'll go back and we'll list the other three in the Genesis 15:9. If not, you can go look it up for yourself. But when we go to this passage, now I don't know if my computer is going to let me do it. We get this mention, and it's a very vague mention. All right? Ezra 6:17. For the dedication of this house of God, they offered 100 bulls, 200 rams, 400 male lambs, and as a sin offering. So what was a scapegoat? She was a sin offering. The scapegoat was to bear all the sins of the nation of Israel double upon her head. She was then either taken out into the desert, left there to die, or as some of the archived old text would have you believe, was tossed off of a high place so that she would break her neck or die. So that was in our understanding. So here we've got, and as a sin offering for all of Israel, 12 male goats, one for each of the tribes of Israel. Is it really male goats, do you think? Well, the sin offering we identified that held double upon her head was the scapegoat, and it was a female goat of the going away. Now, this is interesting. If I can't do it here, if it won't let me move, you'll have to go do it yourselves. All right. Let me just see this right quick. I don't want it to work if I don't have to work. I'm going to do anything. Is my camera still working? It is. Okay. We're going to go hit on that word he-goat in Ezra 6 verse, what was it? Where's my paper again? I wrote it down. Which don't mean nothing. I'll never find it. Ezra 6, 7, or 17. Okay, it's not responding. So I do have to wait. It may mess with my camera when it does that. When you hit on male goats, why they translated it the way they did, I will never understand. Now, where's my notes on this? Let me see. I may not have to go. So get it is Feast of Dead male goats for a sin offering. This goat. You know what the part of speech is? Noun, feminine. It's anywhere you go look. They simply an offering. I didn't look into that deep enough. Is my camera still of dedication? So we get 12 female goats. We got the 12 rods and scepters by the father of every house. No, it was by the mother. The mother. She was sacrificed also, which is why they then translated as father. Where do we get her? Where do we get her? And how can we identify it as definitely Ephraim is still not done working? Male goats. It's amazing, isn't it? Now, you can pull up the Strong's Hebrew 8163, and you know what? It's going to give you hairy goat. Male, masculine. Means hairy goat. Satir, if I'm saying it right, or the Sair. There's also a mountain called Mount Sair in the Bible. We looked at that. So Mount Seir, that word there is a he-goat, means a he-goat. So a he-goat is very different than a she-goat. The she-goat appears in the Genesis 15:9 covenant. She was the one that got burned to an ash heap. She's the one that got blamed, carrying all the burden of Israel upon her head, and he walked clean, playing God. This devil, he-goat, Sair, that climbed to her mountain. Yeah, because that's what goats do. They climb mountains. It's not a hind. It's not a deer. I can prove that to you too, if my computer was working properly. So I'll try to reference those in a minute. But here again in Ezra, they translated it as a female goat, a she goat. They translate it as a male goat and use the female goat, noun feminine, when they could have used this word, 8163, goat, hairy. We get the word hairy there. And every prophet will remove his mantle, his hairy mantle, and he will no longer prophesy. There's a verse in the Bible that states that. Why is the mantle hairy? Because it's the goat that he murdered and stole her mantle from her. We get that with the aegis. We get it pictured with the aegis. Aegis. I'll leave that one down below too. It's a reference to, it means a mantle. It meant a mantle. Yeah. So we're hitting it all the time. So they could have used this word 8163, which is masculine, or they could have used the 6842, which is TSAPHIR, a he goat, a young male goat. Why didn't they use that word? Why use noun feminine? Oh, well, they just made a mistake. Oh, they made a lot of them too. A lot. A lot. So, now, this is the kicker, if I can get there. Okay? When you go in to, let me see, I gotta get this book over here. When you go into, okay, let me see here if this is working. Okay, it still appears to be working. So I'm going to pull down some of these tabs. Okay, we gave you the word, a shaggy, a he-goat, a fawn. Okay, still talking about the almond branch as well. Just to use female, that's going somewhere. I just don't know where yet. Okay, so I'm going to take for a he-goat. Yeah, just took it down. Taking it down. Okay. Now, we also get her, and it does so in the commentary in Song of Songs 6:11. It says she went down in her orchard to see if the nut trees and the pomegranate says it's her. They want this a the almond, but we know that it is so. The apologize. Okay, so there. Probably open my Bible up. So in Psalm 68, first of all, we see her coming from Mount Sinai. We did that in a video. We already studied that. But it says, It says in verse 7, when you, God, went out before your people when you marched through the wilderness. We see her, the dove, burned to an ash heap, symbolizing the Holy Spirit. An ash heap. Why is ashes so important? You watch. We're going to prove this in a minute. So the earth shook, the heavens poured down rain before God, the one of Sinai, the one of desolation. The meaning of Sinai is desolation. So we saw Moses going up and getting the law, not the law, but the 10 Commandments, which was a gently flowing law system from Shiloh, the one that they rejected. When Moses goes down, he's found that they've brought idolatry into the camp. Through this image that came straight out of the land of idolatry, Egypt, as this golden calf idol. And God says, well, you changed your glory over to that which eateth grass. So you changed your wise women, who were your glory in the nation of Israel, the daughters of Zion or daughter of Zion, however you prefer it, over to a cow. Not a cow. It was a bull. The following years becomes named as Marduk and as Baal. Baal being a name for your husband, who claims to be your head, your ruler, and your lawmaker, and has the right to take everything from you. He did not. So here we saw her coming from Sinai as the desolate spirit, in a sense, because by this time, men like Sennacherib, and further on, we see King Solomon doing the same thing. What do we see her? The earth shook, the heavens poured down rain before God, the one of Sinai, before God, the God of Israel, who was the daughters inside the nation of Israel. She was the one found sitting on the Ark of the Covenant, and I believe it was the Ark of the Covenant that she sat on. Hezekiah goes up and petitions her. He says, save me from Sennacherib, okay? Now, if you want to know more about Sennacherib, you're going to have to go pull the videos up. But she's the one that comes from Sinai, and men like Sennacherib will say, then begins to dispense the law. We get the dispensation of the law, known as the Torah, which then hands over all female power, basically, over time, to the men. That's what it did. We see that also as Mordecai's name means follower of Marduk. Marduk is another name for Baal. Baal is another name for your husband. And then we see this little girl, Esther, being taught how to bow to a king. Where was her mother? I mean, for Pete's sake, no man should have been teaching her all these things. It was her mother who should have been teaching her her own power and her own right, not how to bow to a bloody king. And then we get the king there, writing a decree with his 7 advisors, wicked advisors, that every woman would then, from then on, bow to their Baal. And that's the exact. Now, you way God, and indeed turn it comes from Sinai. Where does it say it? The one I'm looking for. That the deliverance. And that's about children. Why now do I see every man standing around with his hands on his hips as if he can give life? As if he's the creator, as if he's the potter, the maker. The children have come to the birth, and there is not strength to deliver. That was the daughter of Zion. She says, you blasphemed my holy name. You blasphemed the spirit of the original covenant. That was she, not he. So what does it say? If I can find it. It's a short little, right there. Right here. This defines the feminine aspect that's denied. And it's found in verse 19 of Psalm 68. And we see a congregation of women that came from the North Mountain. Yeah. Which was where the congregation of God met, found on Mount the Lebanon. And what does it say? It says, praise be to the Lord, to God, our Savior, who daily bears our burdens. That's your scapegoat. And here we get her burned to an ash heap. Again, let's go back to why the ash heap is so important. We're going to turn to this chapter. We absolutely need to validate everything we're saying about the almond branch and how important it is and how it links to the female blessing, which was found in the north kingdom, which was Ephraim. Now, if we go to, because I think I'm done with numbers for now, we're going to go to a tried and true passage, and that is in, okay, before I find it. I'm not saying it before I find it, because I might be the next 10 minutes. Micah, I found it. Micah chapter 5 is where we want to go. And we're going to read the first 2 verses, 1 and 2. What does it say? Now, gather thyself in troops, O daughter of troops, because he laid a siege against us. They shall smite and will smite the judge,.SHE of Israel with a rod upon the cheek. What rod did they strike her with? Well, first the harlot spirit, because they exalted her as the commander of the host. We find her exalted in his heart hid there in Isaiah 47, which is the harlot Babylon that he exalted to the commander of the host. What does the harlot spirit do? Well, the harlot spirit puts all power into his hand. That's what she allows. And she dismisses her own power, right? But what does it say? They shall smite the judge of Israel with a rod upon the cheek. But watch verse 2. But thou, Bethel, it's not Bethlehem. We found the link through Kirjath Jearim and through Ephrata, and how they actually was moving what was the translation there? The place of woods from the north kingdom, right? And slowly moved it into Judah, and to mean something to do with Judah. It never meant anything to do with Judah. It meant Ephrata. So, but thou, Bethel, house, Ephraim, the house that they tore down, the woman's house, which was also the house in the forest of Lebanon, which took double the time for King Solomon to supposedly build. But then he sat up King Pharaoh's daughter, right? King Pharaoh's daughter. So, but thou, Bethel Ephrata, though thou be little among the thousands of, not Judah, Ephraim, Israel, yet out of thee shall not she come forth unto me, that is to be the ruler in Israel, whose going forths have been of old from everlasting. Now, why is it important here at Bethel? Bethel. What's so important? We learned this in another video. I'll never find it, but we did a study on it. So, was, okay, the original name of Bethel. Do you remember? The original name of Bethel, and we make these, we understand it to be so from passages like Genesis 28:19, Genesis 35:6, Joshua 18:13, Judges 1:23, and Judges 1:26, that the original and earlier name of Bethel was what? Luz. Go look up Bethlehem that they got here. It's Bethel. It is so Bethel. But an earlier name of Bethel was Luz. Luz means as growing there. It's his meanings unknown, but the compared Arabic word means shine, gleam, flash of a star. A star shall rise out of Jacob. Now, Jacob stole her name, Israel, her birthright. He wrestled with her. The angel also means lightning, but it's probably from the word luz, L-U-W-Z, as growing there. And so it's going to take you from this word, Strong's Hebrew 3870, which is Luz, which was the original naming of Bethel, to this is what it's derived from, Luz, Strong's Hebrew 3869. You know what it means? An almond tree. A place name, originally Bethel. So Bethel, Ephrata, how they get Judah out of this, because Ephraim is possibly, it says, another name for Ephraim, which is the north kingdom. What the frig is Ephraim doing in Judah? I mean, makes sense. They're burying truths over and they're doing it poorly. Furthermore, this is the kicker. And because my computer won't let me do it, it's going to be almost impossible for me. Okay. Right there. Is that it? I think if I hit on this, I might go there. There's so much info. I may have to cut it here and make another video. Because it's part. A play. No. In the Strong's Greek dictionary. However, the concept of an a meltdown. That's the almond, I think. Maybe not. Down. I think I wrote any info on it. Okay. So what is the amygdala? Amygdala, which can be linked to the almond tree through the Greek. Why? Why can is the amygdala? The small of a limbic rival. Your important role in behavior, emotion, wakeful part of your brain. Oh, what was it called? Oh my gosh. The part of your brain in the back here. I'll post that video down below because I can find that one easy enough. But it had to do with the eyes of God. So we're getting both the eyes of God. One object where the four corners will lead up to the capstone, and that's in the shape of a pyramid. Interesting enough, isn't it? And so we did that. We did that study on, what part of the brain was that called? Anyway, it led us to another part called the atlas. And it had to do with how your eyes perceive the world. That part of the brain in the back of your head. And so we studied that a long time ago. Now it brings in this part of the brain. It's always in the brain waking up. And it's waking up with a different sense of power. It's waking up with wisdom. And that wisdom is going to put an almond branch in your hand that is high. There seems to be 12 of them. And it's the mothers that should be holding them, not the fathers. And they represent the principles of the tribes. They do not represent princes. Principles links us back to Sarah. We do. We do. We get it linked back to Sarah. So on it goes. On and on it goes. So that was your You're Greek. Now, when we go back here, oh, I wish my computer was working. Okay, was that the one? The luz. So it took us to this streak, to the Greek word. The almond tree can be related to the Greek word. This says from. All right. Okay, sorry. I hope it's still working. Okay, almond. And it also links back to those one-time occurrence that this word links to is when Jacob stripped the almond branch was one of time got that I want now was at this word Ephrata. All right. When you pull the word Ephrata up, it's going to say a name of a woman, also a name of Ephraim. We're looking at the house of Ephraim. That all among shall he come forth unto me, that is to be ruler in Israel, whose going forth have been from of old, from everlasting. That's the descendancy of Israel, the daughters of Israel, not man. It's not a man. And when you look up Ephrata, this is the interesting thing. It's going to say another name for Ephraim. It's going to take you to the word Epher, which is going to mean a turban, but it's also going to mean, guess what? Ash, ashes, ash heap that we just found present in Psalm 69 as the Lord that came from the desolate mountain as a desolate spirit because none of the children was hearkening to the spirit of her law. She was burned to an ash heap. You see the witches being burned to an ash heap. We see them finally awakening, which is the meaning of the branch, the almond branch. Okay? Now, did we get through all of that? I'm sorry. I wanted to do so many other things here. But because my computer simply is refusing to help me at this point, I'm going to leave it at that because there is so much research in there for you. There really is. We know she's the daughter of troops. And we know that these daughters are identified as the branches that she chose to rule through, as symbolized by the eagle in, and I believe it was Ezekiel 19. I don't think it's Ezekiel 17. It's Ezekiel 19, where they silenced her on the hills of Israel. And they took the lioness, the mother, yet she runs like a vine in our blood. She's awakening. She's awakening our minds. She's awakening parts of our mind. The almond part of our brain, apparently, amygdala, is when that part, which is shaped like an almond, awakens. It's a symbol of the almond branch. It's being wakeful, being knowing, aware, roused of who your creator is, and awaken. Even those of us who went asleep on the wine that we got drunk off of the table found in Romans 11, yet she selects an elect group that has not bowed their knee to the image of Baal. That's daughters. The election there is female. It is not male. And she says they will awaken like a warrior that's been drunk on wine. That's in the Old Testament. The Lord there is identified as 136. She's also the ash heap Lord in Psalm 68 that's been burned to an ash heap, which is symbolized by ashes, which it goes into the making up of the name of Ephraim, which is the firstborn daughter of her womb, which is the awakening of the almond branch. And she says, remember thy creator. Remember thy Creator in the days of your youth, while the wicked days, evil days come not nigh. There's those of us who are on guard. We see it approaching. We see it coming, and we are warning. We are warning you. That is what the Spirit does. She bears witness. We see the tabernacle of witnessing there mentioned in number 17. She witnesses through the blood, through the water, through the word. She's a spirit that does that. She does that. She makes inquisition into blood. And we see them holding their hands up, saying, how long, holy and true, O Lord, dost thou wait to avenge our blood on the earth? Remember thy Creator before the evil days come, before the cord to draw water from the well is broke. She says, you'll search for me. Proverbs 1, wisdom says, you'll search for me, and you will not find me, and I will laugh at you in the day of your calamity. I will send my rod, and I will tell her, this is her in Psalm 2, it's not he. She says, I will give you the heathens, and you can do with them all what you want. You are a heathen when you are in idol worship. It is on her. She is the rod that will do with the heathen who are idol worshippers whatever she desires. And then we see that which is high, and we get that identified as out amongst the stars. We do. So that word witch, the wizards from all the mages, wizards, sorcerers went after her. They are allegorized again as he-goats. These are all allegories that we have to break down. That is the dark sayings, the riddles, and also the true language that God speaks to us in. So we have to break all of them down. So the other animals, just right here, right quick before I'm done, I wish I had been able to add so many other things here. I just can't. The other animals, of course, was your ram. And that's not a he-goat. He climbs, not like her. She's the she-goat. She's ahead there. We get the heifer, the she-goat, the ram, the turtle dove, who's not cleaved in the midst. She's put to one side. And then we get a pigeon, male, which he's placed to the other side. And the other three animals are cleaved in the midst. Now we get the kings who weren't listening to her covenant in, what was it, Jeremiah 5? It was somewhere in Jeremiah. And to keep control of, I believe it was the women servants that they wanted to keep control of more than anything, but it may well have been the men as well, because they were not letting them go in the year of Jubilee, which was according to the law there of the true God. And so what were the men doing? They were taking unto themselves calves, which are translated as males, and they were cleaving them in the midst. It was never a male, never. So they were really altering so many things throughout the passages as they went on. It makes it so hard to break it down, because you really do literally almost have to look up every word. Such as with, take 12 he-goats. It's not he-goats, it's she-goats. As a sin offering, she bore the sin. She bears the burden. She bears the deliverance of the children. She travails as the creator, the maker, the potter, to bring them forth. The one that they denied from the very beginning, and yet the deliverance is appointed unto her. The salvation, as we see identified in Psalm 68. She's an ash heap. It's an identifying of Ephraim, the north kingdom, the female ruler that was denied her scepter and rightful position of authority, which was over the law to govern her own children and house, which we then see the men using great violence. They are not valiant for the truth in the earth. They were after violence. Men like Nimrod, who was building up Babylon, really building themselves up, because that's what a harlot does. She builds him up. We find that image in Daniel 2 as proof that that's exactly what they did. And so by the harlot being there, eventually she disappears from view. Then we get the abomination of desolation. The abomination of desolation was first identified as a harlot, and then next by a man inside of a man. He falls in love with his own male image as God, God, God. He gives life to everything. Yet why do I see every man standing around with his hands on his hips as if he can give life? Anyway, there we go with the video. It's not a great one. We're fleshing out some of the info. If I see what else I can add in off to the side in another short clip video, I will do that because I had so much info pulled out. Go look up the Scapegoat. I'll leave all the links below that I talked about. There's also the month of Shavat I didn't get to discuss. Represented usually by the blooming of the almond trees, which is your earliest trees. Awake. They're the first ones awake out of dormancy, which takes us again to the passages in Romans 11. What has Israel not obtained? That what not he seeks for, she seeks for. It's a woman seed. You know what she's seeking for? The restoration of her children back to her covenant. The covenant is identified as the law of God. They did not hearken to her law. They were hearkening to the dispensation of man's law. And that's why you end up with a blood covenant going, he died for me and he's coming to rescue me. You can have your 3 male gods ruling over you. You can have them. I see what man did with that. He took everything from you. And you can go, well, here we are in the West, one of the few places on earth, and the laws that they ended up giving up, half of them we didn't ask for. Oh, the right to prostitute yourself, girls. Yeah, it's really a right. They pretend it's not. Pornography, a right. Oh, what was the right they gave there back when I was growing up? Oh, the right for a woman to flash her breasts in public. Didn't you want that right? Don't you just love these rights of debasement and defilement of the woman? Such great wonders. These men love us so much. They hate us. And that's just what it says. She says, they hated me without a cause. They shot at me. They took my covenant away out of the land, and by extension, my children that belongs to me from my womb, that were to hearken to my law. And so she says, long time have I held my peace. But understand this, when you begin to look for me, when I called and you can't be bothered to listen to me and I leave, no more can you draw water from the well and the door is shut. And you will be afraid of that which is high. That's what it seems to indicate. Anyway, so there's a video. I better leave before it gets worse. Sorry that I couldn't do what I wanted to do. There were so many other little things in there to point out. But you know what? When you go in and you study it for yourself through the eyes of the Spirit with your mind waking up, I can never say Amygdala. And what was the other part? I can't remember what it was called. I'll post that one. Let me write that down. I'll post that link. It was called The 7 Eyes of God, was in the title. I'll post that. I'll post the meaning of the almond branch. What was the other one I said? Oh, see, now I can't remember as I remember them, I'll post them anyway. So thanks for watching. I pray the Lord blesses you with an abundance of truth. And thanks for watching. And I hope you all have a lovely day. And thanks again.